Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel, and thank you for joining me for another true crime video. Today's case is recent, still unfolding. It's also extremely upsetting and frustrating because this senseless crime could have and should have been prevented at so many different levels. And it speaks volumes about the way the criminal justice system does not seem concerned with protecting victims. I've said it before, and I'll say it again as many times as it takes to sink in. The justice system is broken, and there needs to be changes made, or very preventable crimes like this one, they're never going to stop. In December of 2023, 22-year-old nursing student Lauren Johansen recorded an 11-minute video on her phone, with the resulting audio illustrating a terrifying and toxic domestic violence situation. Lauren's on-again, off-again boyfriend, Bryson had driven her away in a car where he proceeded to threaten her and beat her within an inch of her life. "Hey, I'm going to be real to you," Rivers lectured a beaten and bloody Lauren. "If you move at all from the spot you're in, I swear to God, you ain't waking up to see tomorrow. So I suggest you cooperate and calm down." Rivers told Lauren that no one was ever going to find her, and he can be heard telling Lauren that her head was swelling up like a bowling ball. The audio also suggests that for most of the 11-minute video, Lauren was unable to speak due to the injuries inflicted on her by Bryson Rivers. Now, 23-year-old Bryson Rivers was arrested later that night, and his bond was initially set at $251,000. But several months later, he would be released from jail, and within a few days, Lauren Johansen would be found dead, beaten to death in the back seat of her car. We have a lot to talk about today, but before we dive in, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, HelloFresh. Get mouth-watering seasonal recipes and fresh, pre-measured ingredients delivered right to your door with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. From the planning, shopping, and prepping to actually getting everyone to enjoy what you made, family dinners can be stressful, but they shouldn't be. They should be a time of fun and connecting with your loved ones after a long day out in the world. And HelloFresh gets that. That's why they make it easy by delivering fresh ingredients and picky eater-approved recipes right to you each week. I have kids, so finding meals that the kids will eat is always a challenge and also always a priority. And HelloFresh's new Build-A-Plate meals are designed to let every member of your household create their own perfect plate. So if you also have kids, especially young ones, you've been there before. You know, you're making 3 different things because no one can agree on what to eat. And usually one of those things is like buttered pasta or something, right? Well, now there can be no more making multiple meals to satisfy everyone. You can just make one meal with so many ways to enjoy it. And with a changing menu of 50 recipes to choose from each week, HelloFresh makes it easy to find something that the whole family will love. HelloFresh's meals can easily be customized to fit your family's taste with protein and veggie swap options. You and the kids can choose just the right combo for each week's delivery. And the best part is you don't need any culinary experience to make these meals. HelloFresh sends you easy-to-follow recipe cards with step-by-step instructions and pictures. They also send pre-portioned ingredients, so you get exactly what you need for each recipe. You cut down on food waste, which is a very important thing to me. All you have to do is choose your delivery date, open your box, and then get cooking. I love cooking with HelloFresh. It is super easy. The recipes are so easy to follow. The kids like to do it with me. You know, they get in on it. I love that the ingredients come already pre-portioned, so I'm not wasting a ton of food. And most importantly, every single HelloFresh meal I've ever made tastes delicious, and everyone agrees with me. And with HelloFresh for a limited time, kids eat free. All you have to do is go to HelloFresh.com and use code Harlowe Kids to unlock this exclusive offer. 1 free kids meal per box for 2 months while subscription is active. That's free kids meals just by going to HelloFresh.com using my code Harlowe Kids. So thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video, and let's dive in. Lauren Johansen was born on October 30th, 2001 in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, to her parents Lance and Tamila. She also has 3 siblings, a 16-year-old brother Kyler and 14-year-old twin siblings Christian and Caitlin. Now, Lauren always wanted to be a nurse. She wanted to work in the medical field. Her father, Lance, was an orthopedic surgeon. Her mother, Tamila, was a nurse. And the desire to care for and heal ran in her family, was in her blood. According to a GoFundMe, Lauren's siblings were born premature and struggled with some disabilities. And at times, Lauren had to step up and act more as a mother figure to her brothers and sisters. And when her mother was unable to work and take care of the children, Lauren helped her father, Lance, do that. Despite having so much responsibility at such a young age, Lauren excelled in high school and also found time and energy to regularly volunteer at animal shelters, and she rescued many animals. Reportedly, Lauren took her dog, Bentley Joe, and her cat, Marley, everywhere she went, and she would have brought her rescue horse, Coco, with her as well if he had fit into her Jeep. Lauren was known to not only be kind, caring, and intelligent, but very beautiful. And as a brand ambassador for Ulta, her skills with makeup were very well recognized. During high school, the beautiful and vibrant Lauren began dating a star on the football team, Bryson Rivers. The two dated for many years, I think around 5 years altogether, but from the start, the relationship was marked with trouble and toxicity. Family and friends noticed pretty early on that Bryson seemed to have a hard time regulating his emotions, we'll say. He was known for constant angry outbursts that would lead to incessant arguments between himself and Lauren. Bryson apparently was controlling and possessive and tried to isolate Lauren from the people closest to her. And he seemed to be unable to control himself. He would show up at Lauren's house unannounced, and he would frequently disrupt her life and the lives of those around her with his episodes of jealousy and rage. It was a lot of, fighting, breaking up, making up, passion, toxicity, back and forth, push, pull, angry, and then, sobbing, I need you, come back to me, etc., etc. And according to Lauren's father, Lance, the worst part about all of this was that Bryson would blame Lauren for his bad behavior. And over time, he wore her down, and he manipulated her into believing that his emotional state was Lauren's responsibility. Lance Johansen, Lauren's father, began to believe that his daughter seemed to be brainwashed. He said she seemed to have some form of Stockholm syndrome, where no matter what Bryson said or did to her, she always went back to him. But as high school came to an end and Lauren focused on her future, her father, Lance, hoped that she would be done with her abusive, toxic high school boyfriend once and for all. Lauren was going to attend the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg to study and get her nursing license, and she seemed to realize that she couldn't sustain the tumultuous relationship with Bryson Rivers. Lauren would even meet a new love interest, someone who offered her safety and protection from her volatile ex-boyfriend. 24-year-old Army aviation veteran Nick Bell was also training to become a nurse after 3 years in the military, and he actually lived next door to Lauren in Hattiesburg. The two began seeing each other in April of 2023, and through Lauren, Nick became very familiar with Bryson Rivers and his seemingly erratic and scary behavior. Quote, he is the most selfish individual imaginable. Everyone she loved, he tormented and tried to rip away from her. She came back from a trip and asked me to check if the house was safe. That's when I found him hiding underneath the bed. He had wedged or nailed the doors shut with the idea that once she got in there, she would have no way to get out. I reached for my firearm and gave him 30 seconds to leave the premises. He was gone by 19. End quote. Now, this is interesting. I mean, it's not interesting. It's terrifying because Lauren's out of town. She comes back. Her ex-boyfriend, Bryson, clearly knows she's out of town and knows when she's coming back, which means she's probably still communicating with him in some way, shape, or form, or he's stalking her physically, stalking her electronic communication. Maybe he has her email passwords, etc. So he knows when she's traveling, where she's going, and when she'll be back. And he makes it a point to be inside of her house when she gets back. And according to Nick Bell, Lauren's boyfriend at the time, Bryson Rivers, nailed the doors and windows shut, or somehow managed to secure the doors and windows shut inside the house so that when she got in, she wouldn't have an easy time of getting back out. Now, what was he planning to do? Was he just going to want to talk to her and convince her to get back together? Was there going to be some sort of hostage situation? Was he going to scare her and intimidate her into giving him another chance? Thankfully, we won't know ever what was going to happen, what Bryson Rivers had in store for Lauren, because Lauren's boyfriend, Nick, was there, and because Lauren knew Bryson's patterns, knew his behaviors, and sort of knew that nothing was off limits and he would do anything to get to her, she asked Nick to check the house before she went in by herself, and luckily she did that, and luckily Nick found Bryson hiding under Lauren's bed. What an absolute loser. And so Nick's like, you got to get out of here. Bryson Rivers takes off, but is he happy about it? No. He's not going to be happy about it. He's not going to be happy that he didn't get to do what he wanted to do. He's not going to be happy that Lauren has somebody else there who's protecting her, who's standing as a boundary or an obstacle between Bryson and Lauren. And he's not going to be happy that he was sort of shown up and somebody got the better of him. By this point, it would seem like Lauren was done with Bryson Rivers once and for all. But as she and Nick got closer, Bryson grew more and more angry. And Nick said, quote, "Lauren told me stories about how he had beaten her and stalked her. I was never going to stand for that. He was a coward, and there was no way he would step to me. But he would come back at nighttime and watch us through the windows or follow us around. Lauren had called the police on him many times in the past. We had to get cameras. There was never a moment of peace for the first couple of months," end quote. Even though this obviously wasn't the ideal situation to start a new relationship in, Nick Bell was smitten with Lauren. And despite her baggage, he wanted to love and protect her forever. In August of 2023, the couple went on vacation to Miami together. And there on the beach, Nick dropped to his knees and asked Lauren to marry him. He said, quote, "Lauren was like a girl from a fairy tale, beautiful from head to toe. From the way she smiled to the way she talked and carried herself, I asked her if she would be my wife, my life partner, and my best friend. She said yes. Wow." End quote. After so long of having a partner who said he loved her but who hurt her, a partner whose words never matched his actions, Lauren seemed to have finally found a healthy relationship with a man who valued and even seemed to revere her. Not only that, but she was doing well in college. She was given a place on the dean's list. She was part of the National Honor Society. She was on her way to achieving her dreams of being a nurse and having a happy, relationship, a happy marriage, eventually have some kids, settle down, have a good life. So obviously, her fiancé Nick was stunned when after a few months, their engagement ended because he found out that Lauren and Bryson were romantically involved again. Nick said, quote, "Bryson was her first true boyfriend. He had taken advantage of her and her family for so long that he knew how to get to her. A good bit of my things were still at her house, and when I went back to check on her, he jumped out of a closet and aimed a gun at my forehead. I grabbed the weapon, turned it on him, then disassembled it. I told him there would be no issue and that I'd leave. I left the gun disassembled in the middle of the floor," end quote. And maybe Nick would regret that because this gun, it appears, is going to pop back up in this case. So Lauren's back with Bryson, sort of, I guess. They're going to work things out. And in December of 2023, Lauren and Bryson took a trip to Nashville, Tennessee. They visited the art museum on Broadway. They played a few games at the Topgolf near the Cumberland River. And then they returned to their Airbnb before heading back out to watch a football game at a local bar. But allegedly, while they were at the bar, Bryson accused Lauren of flirting with and then even having sex with a bartender while she'd been in the bathroom. And so Bryson and Lauren left the bar as their argument escalated. It seems that Bryson got Lauren into their rental car and then he drove off and he grabbed her phone and he kept driving and he wouldn't stop. And then Bryson sort of alternated between threatening Lauren, choking Lauren, and beating Lauren viciously. Eventually, Bryson would pull over in a parking lot, and Lauren would later tell police that they were there for about an hour while he continued to beat her to the point where she almost lost consciousness. She said she was screaming and kicking, and she would hit the car horn every time she saw a vehicle pass them. But then Bryson held his forearm against her throat until she saw black and got dizzy. Lauren recorded 11 minutes of this harrowing situation on her cell phone. We don't have the actual recording, but it exists. Many news outlets were allowed to listen to it and take notes. They just weren't allowed to duplicate it or replicate it or record it and play it for anyone else. And according to these news outlets, here's what happened. And please keep in mind, This is a small portion of what Lauren experienced that night, 11 minutes out of at least an hour. So Bryson Rivers told Lauren, quote, "If you move at all tonight, I swear to God, you're not going to wake up tomorrow. I suggest you cooperate and calm down. I literally scheduled marriage counseling for us. Do you realize that? Bite me, bitch. I dare you." End quote. Bryson also told Lauren, quote, "All I got to do is drive 15 minutes outward and I can drop you off in the woods, right? And no one will ever see you again." End quote. The Nashville Banner, one of the media outlets who was allowed to review the audio recording, claimed that the sounds coming from Lauren at that time were unintelligible. And although it's not clear what's happening during that 11 minutes, Lauren can be heard choking for long stretches, and Bryson Rivers can be heard describing Lauren's physical condition, telling her that she looked as if she was hemorrhaging tonight, and later telling her that her head was swollen up like a fucking bowling ball. Bryson Rivers also makes mention of past incidents of abuse, saying, quote, "You know, whenever I hit you last and I beat your ass because of your crying, this is the same situation," end quote. At one point, Rivers also mentions that he was going to take his own life, saying, quote, "I'm not trying to pretend like I'm being a fucking great person right now, so when I shoot myself and blow my head off in that apartment tonight and you look like this, everyone will understand." End quote. And he also said, quote, "I have mental problems. I have issues. I've been holding everything back trying to work with you." End quote. Now, just reading these words and understanding a very, very small portion of what Lauren was going through in that car, it's traumatic. It's hard to think about, hard to put yourself in her shoes. I can't imagine how horrible it would be to hear this audio, by the way, hear his voice saying these things, hear her whimpering and crying helpless in the background. But not only that, how completely terrifying it would have been for Lauren to be trapped in this small space with a man who was not only saying these things to her, but continually beating her and choking her at the same time. Now, right near the end of the recording, Lauren can be heard begging, quote, "Help, help, I can't see at all. Baby, I just want to go home." End quote. Now, it's not exactly clear how the Nashville Police Department became aware of the situation. Some outlets report that Lauren was able to call her family and that she was screaming to them that her boyfriend was trying to kill her, and they called the police. Others state that Bryson had called his mother, Chelsea Rivers. Chelsea heard screaming in the background of the call, and then Chelsea called Lauren's father, Lance, who called the police. But either way, officers arrived to the parking lot where Bryson and Lauren were parked, and they saw a blue car with fogged up windows. Metro Police body camera footage shows Lauren using her hands to bang on the passenger side window for help. And when an officer opened the door, Lauren ran outside wearing only her bra and underwear. The inside of the vehicle was reportedly covered in blood, as were both Lauren and Bryson, to the point where police were initially concerned that they were both injured. But they weren't both injured. Bryson Rivers didn't have a mark on him. It was Lauren's blood that was all over him, all over her, all over the inside of the car. She was an absolute mess. She had to be hospitalized for 2 days. And in this same blue rental car, the police found a pistol, and they found 2 rocks. All 3 of these items, these weapons, were covered in Lauren's blood. Lauren had been hit with these weapons, these items, over 100 times. And photos taken after the incident show Lauren covered in bruises, with her face so bloody and swollen. She's not recognizable. She didn't even look like herself. Both of Lauren's eyes were bruised and swollen shut. There's a pretty significant laceration at her hairline. There's a pretty significant abrasion above her left eyebrow that honestly looks like the butt of a pistol. It's kind of an indentation. Lauren's lips were swollen. She had bruises all over her arms and legs, which suggested she had tried to defend and protect herself against the onslaught of blows. And when police arrived, Bryson Rivers calmly asked them what was going on as they cuffed him. Reportedly, Lauren was crying and shaking. She wanted to talk to her father. She got on the phone with her father. And body cam footage reportedly shows Lauren telling the police officers, quote, "I was in a car with Bryson and he was holding me down, so I couldn't scream. I thought he was going to be okay," end quote. I think when she means I thought he was going to be okay, she meant I thought coming to on this trip to Nashville with him was okay. I thought he was not going to hurt me anymore. I thought he had learned his lesson after losing me. I thought he loved me, wanted me back, and was not going to hurt me anymore because that's what he told me, right? He told me he wasn't going to hurt me anymore. Now, reportedly, once again, this body camera footage exists. Lauren's father has seen it. Some media outlets have seen it. We do not have public access to it yet. But reportedly, at the end of this body cam footage, or at some point in the body cam footage, Lauren also states that her left eye wasn't opening. Now, it appears that after Bryson Rivers was arrested and he was booked into a Nashville jail, Lauren visited a domestic violence center. But then a few days later, she accepted a jail phone call from Bryson. Now, by this time, Lauren had already stated to the authorities that she didn't want to press charges against Bryson, but they had told her basically, listen, we have enough evidence between the body camera footage, between, the audio on your phone, between how you looked, we have enough evidence to go forward with this case against him without you having to press charges. And during this call between Bryson and Lauren, while Bryson was in jail, Bryson told Lauren, basically, get me out of here. He's like, I want to get out of here. I want to see you. I want to be back with you. He said, listen, tell the court that what you told them happened didn't happen. Tell them that you were drunk at the time of the incident when the cops show up. Tell them I didn't hit you. Tell them you hit your own head against the dashboard of the car, and then you continue to hit your own head against the car window. Bryson also said he was ready to return to Mississippi so that he and Lauren could be together, and that Lauren should inform the investigators that Bryson wanted to turn over a new leaf. He wanted to join the military, and apparently the Army wouldn't take him, so he was going to try to go into the Air Force. And Lauren should tell law enforcement, any prosecution, any criminal things going on with Bryson would make this difficult. Bryson told Lauren, quote, say that a military career will straighten him out. Say that probation and classes will help a lot. I've never really had a chance. You already know what to do, baby. If they put them on file or standby, I will go to them. They accept people with cuts on their hands and shot, end quote. I don't really know what this means. I don't know what these last sentences mean, but basically Bryson's trying to convince Lauren that, there's still hope for him. He's always been a victim of his circumstances, and this is why he's like this, and this is why he has these anger problems, but it's because he's a victim too, and she knows that, and convince the court of that, and convince the court that if he gets out and he goes to the military, it's going to straighten him up and he doesn't have to have his whole life ruined. And Lauren's like, listen, I'll do that, but I'm kind of worried that the statements I made on the night of your arrest are going to matter more than what I say now. And Lauren said, quote, I remember bits and pieces, and I'm kind of worried they will take that as my official statement. So I am confused. There was a whole lot going on, end quote. Before hanging up, Lauren and Bryson told each other that they loved each other. Now, you might be shocked to hear that Lauren Johansen, didn't want to press charges. I mean, we saw the pictures of what Bryson Rivers did to her. You may also be surprised that she's accepting calls from him and that she told Bryson she loved him while he sat in jail for almost killing her. Because what happened to Lauren obviously was not love, not even close. And how can you love someone who so clearly doesn't love you? How can you love someone who hurt you so badly? And if you're surprised about this, if you're surprised that she didn't want to press charges and that she's still telling Bryson that she loved him, I'm happy for you, honestly, because that means you've never been in a relationship like this. You've never been in a toxic, abusive relationship that's marked by coercive control and manipulation. According to the Domestic Violence Network, quote, coercive control is the pattern of behavior or actions used by a perpetrator to frighten, threaten, oppress, and limit their victim. A perpetrator will work to isolate and intimidate their partner to the point where their partner's isolation from others and dependence on them gives them an immense feeling of power and control. It's important to remember that coercive control can strip away a victim's sense of self, independence, and even basic rights. A victim would feel trapped, confused, lonely, embarrassed, scared, and that's just the manipulation. Most often, physical or other types of abuse occur hand in hand with coercive control. The scary part about coercive control is many victims don't even realize they're being trapped by this pattern of behaviors until they're in too deep because of how subtle these tactics can be, end quote. Now, Lauren's father, Lance, had referred to what was happening with Lauren as this more well-known psychological term, which is Stockholm Syndrome. And he's kind of right. Stockholm Syndrome is where a positive bond between a hostage and their captor occurs, and this bond might seem irrational to everyone due to the severity of what's happening to the hostage. but it's believed that hostages develop this as a way to cope with an extreme and terrifying situation. WebMD says, quote, a person might be abused and severely threatened by a captor or an abuser, but they may also rely on them to survive. If the abuser is kind in any way, they might cling to this as a coping mechanism for survival. They might have sympathy towards them for this kindness, end quote. And we can see this in the 11-minute audio recorded by Lauren, because Bryson is telling her he doesn't want to do this to her. He doesn't think he's a good person. He doesn't think this is right. He knows he has problems. But he's been trying so hard. He's been trying to get better and be better. He's been trying to work things out with Lauren. She just won't let him because she doesn't understand him. She's the problem. She's triggering him. You know, he's doing his part, but she's not doing hers. She's flirting with bartenders, having sex with them in the bathroom, apparently. And he's yelling at her in the car. Why? Why'd you do that? Tell me. And she's like, I didn't do anything. But she is, right? According to him, she's doing something and she's at fault. So every time he hits her, every time he beats her, it's because she's not keeping up her end of the bargain. She's not cooperating with this conjoined, I guess, vision of what their relationship's going to look like going forward. She's betraying him by not being exactly who he wants her to be, who he needs her to be in order for him to behave. So when she's somebody else, when she does something that's out of character, when she does something that doesn't allow him to keep his temper under control, it's her fault. You know, it's her fault. She's making him hurt her. If only she were better. If only she loved him more as much as he loved her, this wouldn't be happening. And then on the jail phone call, Bryson tells Lauren, you know, I've never had a chance. You know how my life was like. And it's likely that Bryson was always playing the victim with Lauren from day one. No one has ever loved me. Everyone's always hurt me, but not you, right? You'll be my person. You'll stick by me. You aren't going to be like the rest of them. You're going to be the one person in my life who's shown me true love and who won't hurt me or betray me or abandon me. It's you. You're going to save me. People like Bryson Rivers don't choose just anyone as partners. They find the kindest, most empathetic people who exist, the ones who love children and animals, the ones who volunteer at rescue shelters and who happily dedicate their time and energy to caring for their siblings, even though they don't have to do any of that. They choose the people with the biggest hearts who only see the best in others. They choose people who give second, third, and fourth chances. They choose people who see loyalty as a requirement, not an option. It's very complicated. It's very pervasive. And we've talked about this in cases before, like Micah Miller. I know many of you have experience with these kinds of relationships. And it's as if the abuser makes you feel like it's you two against the world. You only have each other. You can't trust anyone else. And before you know it, you've lost friends and family, and you're completely like fused with this person emotionally in a trauma bond. And that's a very difficult bond to break. It's like an addiction, the cycle of the highs and lows. You try to do anything you can to get through the bad days because you know how kind and loving this person can be in the good days. And so if you can just get him back to his nice and loving self, if you can just get back to the good days, everything will be okay. You can handle a few bad days, right? As long as you know the good days are coming. So those of you who have experienced this, if you feel comfortable, because I know there's a lot of people out there who are going through this, who have gone through this. If you feel comfortable, give us some examples in the comments about your own experience with coercive control and abuse, because we could talk about this for hours, but you'd really have to have lived through it to understand. And it doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you stupid. It just happened so slowly and so subtly that you didn't realize what was going on because you were trusting, you believed in true love, you wanted to love and you wanted to be loved, and you don't understand it. The people around you don't understand it. It's the craziest, most disruptive and unsettling thing that can happen to a person. So if you guys have experience out there, talk about it. I think that it would help anybody who's currently in that situation, who may be currently going through something similar, but they don't know what it's called. They can't really put their finger on it. They just know something's wrong and something's off. So talk about it in the comments. I think that we can help each other here. Here is a clip of Lance Johansen, and he's talking about exactly this.
Lauren grew up in a home that we never spanked or hit anybody in our family. We just never didn't believe in that, and how she came victim to a man that just beat her and beat her and beat her and just beat her to death. My wife's at home crying about it right now.
That man Lance Johansen is referring to is his daughter's ex-boyfriend, Bryson Rivers. The young couple dated on and off for about 5 years. What were your first impressions of Bryson Rivers?
Well, they weren't good, and I told her. But like any father, there's some things that we, maybe I should have been more aggressive about it, right, in hindsight. But I respected her decision, and I let her know what I thought.
Johansen says he didn't realize just how bad the relationship was until Bryson Rivers was arrested in Nashville, Tennessee, where the couple was vacationing. According to police, they found Lauren severely beaten, her eye swollen shut, with a severe laceration to her forehead. She was extremely emotional and asking for her father. Johansen says he saw body cam footage from that night.
It's just really difficult to hear your daughter crying for her life on a video. I went up there and I picked up Lauren from the hospital, and I saw what she looked like, and I took care of her for the first week afterwards, because she was just really hurt. And she was one tough lady. I mean, she was telling me she was okay. I know she couldn't see that good and everything else.
Rivers was charged with aggravated kidnapping, aggravated stalking, and witness coercion. But it appears that wasn't enough to drive Lauren Johansen away.
I've seen some of the court records where Bryson and your daughter were talking on the phone when he was in jail.
Yes.
And it seemed like they were kind of conspiring on ways so that they could get him out of jail. And they even believe they ended the phone conversations with, "I love you." Why do you think Lauren kept going back to Bryson?
Well, look, I'm an orthopedic surgeon and I do joint replacement surgery. I'm not a psychiatrist, but this isn't rocket science, okay? I knew he was a psychopath, and if you look it up and Google it and you read the qualities, he's a very scary person. And I had to warn her repetitively over and over that you got to stay away from this guy. And she was doing pretty good staying away from him. The problem is that these type of people are so manipulative, and they talk their way into anything, and they find a way to have the person they're abusing act like they did nothing wrong.
What would you say to another father, mother, who knows that their child is going through something like this and they just can't get through to them?
This happens all over the world, unfortunately. Nobody wants to talk about it. If you're thinking that, is there something you can do? Don't think about something you can do, go do it. If you think about maybe I should go get her and bring her to the home for a week or two, go do it. Don't just think about, well, maybe I should. If you think about it, go do it, because you're probably doing the right thing.
Do you think your family will be able to heal from this?
This is never going to be right with me, no matter how many years it goes on. You just have to live one day at a time. And we're going to do that to honor Lauren. And I'm going to try my best to, stand up for her and do what she would do if she saw this happen to somebody else.
And as a family member of someone who's going through this, like Lauren was, we can understand how it would be difficult. I'm a parent of a daughter who's of dating age. Actually, Lauren was born on October 30th, 2001. My own daughter, who's 22, same age as Lauren, was born 15 days prior, same year, same month. And a lot of you listening and watching right now have children who are or have been in relationships. And with the wisdom of our age and experience, we can often see if maybe there's red flags, if maybe someone isn't the best for our child, but there also isn't much we can do, especially if that child is legally an adult. We can express our opinions, but if they're dating someone like Bryson Rivers, they're just going to be told by their partner that we're trying to drive a wedge between them. We don't care about them. We just want them to be unhappy. We're going to look exactly the way the abuser is painting us to look behind closed doors, and we risk pushing our child further away and helping their abuser isolate them from people who genuinely do have their best interests at heart. There's really not a lot you can do as a parent, a family member, or a loved one of someone who's under this kind of coercive control. It's like trying to save a family member or a loved one who's in a cult. And we know how hard that is. As you heard in that clip, though, Bryson Rivers was charged with aggravated kidnapping, aggravated stalking, and witness coercion. On Monday, December 18th, 2023, a preliminary hearing set Bryson's bond at $251,000. Now, Lance Johansen made sure he was present at that hearing to let the judge know that if Rivers was released, he would kill Lauren. Lance said, quote, "I sat in the courtroom in Nashville and told the judge that if they let him out, he was going to kill her. He had assaulted her. This was probably the 5th or 6th time where they would get into a fight and he would beat her. We would get her away from him for a while, but he would find a way to weasel back in it," end quote. On Wednesday, March 13th, 2024, Bryson Rivers requested that his bond be reduced. And according to Steve Hayslip, a spokesperson for the Nashville District Attorney's Office, they opposed a bond reduction strongly. But then on Wednesday, April 3rd, Judge Cheryl Blackburn approved a reduced bond, lowering it from $251,000 to $150,000. The worst part about this whole situation is that the judge, Cheryl Blackburn, made this horrible decision to reduce Bryson Rivers' bond even after she reviewed the 11-minute audio of Bryson beating and threatening Lauren in their rental car. She listened to that audio. She heard it, guys, okay? Please try to wrap your head around. She listened to it, and she still said, hey, this guy seems okay. Let's make it easier for him to get out of jail and walk the streets again. Judge Blackburn wrote in court documents that the likelihood of Bryson being convicted was high due to body camera footage and the audio recording from inside the car. But she still reduced his bond. She was like, I heard this audio recording. I know what he did. And like I said, just reading the words was triggering and traumatic. Hearing it, I can imagine, was 100 times more intense. And then she wrote in court documents, yeah, this guy's probably going to get convicted because of all this evidence we have against him. And she still reduced his bond. We also know, however, that the judge said she had no record of a previous criminal history for Bryson, even though he did have a previous criminal history. He's got a bunch of charges. He's got a DU charge in January of 2021 from Hancock County, Mississippi. He was arrested and booked again in that same county for possession and trafficking of a controlled substance in December of 2022. I'm sure eventually it's going to come out how many times Lauren called the police against him for domestic violence issues. So he did have a criminal history. And the judge is like, well, I didn't know. It wasn't presented to me. I don't care. I don't care. You heard the audio. You yourself saw the body cam footage of what Lauren looked like, saw the pictures of what Lauren looked like in the hospital, heard the audio. You were like, yeah, this guy's definitely going to, have the book thrown at him. He's going to prison. You still reduced his bond. Okay? Judge Blackburn also wrote that the physical evidence in the case did not support Lauren's court testimony. And the calls between Lauren and Bryson when Bryson was in jail, they were admitted as evidence for the hearing. And police stated that Lauren had changed her statement from the hospital to the courtroom. So we know that on the day of the assault, on the night of the assault, Lauren told the police one thing at the hospital. Then she talks to Bryson on the phone in jail, which the police know, the prosecutors know, the judge knows, and we know Bryson was like, hey, baby, just tell them that you did this to yourself and tell them this and tell them that, which is why he got in trouble for intimidating a witness. So we know that happened. And then we know after that happened, Lauren testifies in court and completely changes her story because now she's saying she fell asleep and she woke up and then she was hitting her boyfriend and she pulled out a chunk of his hair. And she also said that at one point she threw a metal water bottle at Bryson. But remember, the police found no evidence of injuries on Bryson Rivers when they arrived. And Lauren claimed that the car was bloody because she was spitting and got blood everywhere. And the reason her eye was swollen was because she and Bryson were struggling over the gun, but he never hit her with a closed fist. She said he never hit her with a closed fist, and she had no idea why there was a laceration on her head. I guess we're just going to forget about the rocks and the gun covered in blood in the car. So, according to the court documents, Lauren claimed she didn't remember telling police that Bryson had beaten her, and she said the only reason she was in her bra and underwear was because she'd gotten hot. Obviously, completely different version of the story than she told police at the hospital. So, we've got the physical evidence, right? Lauren's body, her face. We've got the body cam footage showing her trying to get out of the car. We've got the audio from inside the car showing that Bryson is beating her, choking her, threatening her. And we have the jailhouse phone call where Bryson's like, change your story, get me out of here. And then we have Lauren changing her story, which is exactly what Bryson told her to do in the jailhouse phone call. And the judge is like, yeah, this guy's definitely going to get convicted. And she still reduced his bond. I want you to realize how stupid of a decision this was. And after being released from the hospital, Lauren, she spoke to Bryson many times, but she never returned any calls from the Nashville Police Department. This girl was manipulated. She was brainwashed. And let's talk about Judge Cheryl Blackburn for a minute, because I have a big issue big issue with judges and a big issue with the immunity they receive even when they make stupid, dangerous calls, even when they make decisions that end in violence and death, which is pretty often, more often than you think, more often than you'd like to think. And basically, judges have prosecutorial immunity, which means they can't be charged civilly for stupid decisions they make, stupid calls they make. Now, Judge Cheryl Blackburn is a veteran jurist in her 70s. She's been on the bench since 1996. She was supposed to retire after suffering from a stroke in 2021, but to everyone's surprise, Judge Blackburn decided to stay on the bench, and then she won re-election the following year. Now, an article in the Nashville Banner highlights why this was probably a bad decision. Quote, on the afternoon of June 24th, criminal court judge Cheryl Blackburn took the bench for the first day of a week-long first-degree murder trial. The longtime jurist, who's now in her mid-70s and suffered a stroke in 2021, stumbled over her words while addressing the jury, repeating or restarting words as she spoke. In one instance, she mistakenly said probation instead of process. Later, she called a defense attorney, Michael Friedman, Mr. Frankfurt. The next day, after mixing up a series of names, she assured the court, I'll get this right. Then later that afternoon, she appeared to fall asleep multiple times. The Banner was present for 4 of the trial's 5 days, each of which featured moments where the judge seemed confused, tongue-tied, or asleep. At the end of the week, the jury found the defendant guilty. It was one of several trials Blackburn has presided over since Nashville defense attorneys started raising questions about her competency in legal filings earlier this year. Concerns about the judge's mental acuity had been the subject of courthouse gossip, and that murmuring has only continued in the months since, end quote. Now, Judge Cheryl Blackburn, who clearly is not, at the top of her game, let's be honest, let's be objective here, not at the top of her game, she reduced Bryson Rivers' bond. But there were conditions to Bryson's release. He was ordered to not leave Davidson County, Tennessee, and he had to be fitted for a GPS monitor after posting bond. The bond order also noted that Rivers was not to be released after 4 p.m. because the court-ordered GPS monitoring company, Tracking Solutions, closed at 5. And so they wanted to make sure that Bryson had enough time to get out of jail, get over to Tracking Solutions, and get fitted for his GPS tracker. On May 15th, Bryson and his mother requested that the conditions of his release be changed so that he could return to Mississippi to live while awaiting his trial, but the judge denied this request. On Tuesday, June 4th, a company called Elite Bonding was approved by the court to post Bryson's bond, but Bill Tomlinson, the owner of Elite Bonding, he said he decided against handling the case because he wasn't sure how Bryson was going to live in Davidson County without having any family there with him. On the same day, June 4th, Bryson's assigned parole officer sent a copy of the court order to Tracking Solutions, and Bryson's attorney requested that they email the DA's office to retrieve the appropriate addresses for exclusion zones. So basically, the GPS monitor would have to be programmed to show an area in which Bryson was allowed to be, and also there would have to be programming that set exclusion zones so that if he left the approved area, the monitor would notify the appropriate parties of his violation. Bryson Rivers' attorney also provided the court with an address in Davidson County where Bryson would allegedly be living. Now, the next day, 2 different bond companies were approved to post Bryson's bail. On-Time Bail Bonding and Brooks Bonding would each put up $75,000, and they were asked to come to the court and sign an order that specified bond conditions and also laid out who pays who, or who pays what, basically. The court order was only 2 pages long. The first page listed conditions of release and specifically dictated that the GPS monitor had to be fitted by Tracking Solutions. So when I say conditions of release, it's going to say he needs a GPS monitor. He needs to stay in Davidson County. He can't be released after 4 p.m., et cetera, et cetera. On Monday, June 24th, 2024, Bryson Rivers was released from the Maximum Correctional Center on Harding Place at 4:05 p.m. And remember, one of the conditions of his release was that he not be released after 4 p.m. Now, I'm going to fast forward in the timeline a bit here, but we're going to go back and we're going to examine exactly what went wrong here. And spoiler alert, a lot went wrong. On Friday, June 28th, the Nashville District Attorney's Office called Lauren's father, Lance, and left a voicemail.
This is Bailey calling from the District Attorney's Office here in Nashville. Bryson Rivers was released from custody. He was supposed to report straight to a GPS company and be put on a GPS monitor, and he was not to leave Davidson County. But as soon as he was released, he did not report to that GPS monitoring company, and he has not been heard from. So I want to make sure that Lauren is safe.
The voicemail says is that the man's on the way to kill your daughter is basically what that means.
Now, Lance Johansen didn't hear that voicemail until the following Monday, July 1st. And first, I want to say there's some people who are like, well, why would you not be, on top of your calls, on top of your voicemails when you know this is happening? Lance was told that if anything changed with Bryson Rivers, he was going to be informed, right? So that means if Bryson Rivers made bond, Lance should have been informed. Lauren should have been informed, right? But that didn't happen. So on Monday, July 1st, when Lance hears this voicemail, he claims he texted his daughter Lauren and he received a message back from her, but he said it didn't sound like her. And I don't know exactly what this message was. He hasn't said. Now, this surprised Lance because, like I said, he'd been given every assurance that Bryson Rivers wasn't going anywhere and that Lauren was safe.
We sat there with the initial, I guess you would say, the prosecutor, the victim advocates, and the judge. And this is the time I told them also that, she had been hit over 100 times. And they assured me, I'm just telling you, they assured me there was no way this man was ever getting out of jail. And they assured me that everything was going to be taken care of. So they told me that they were going to let me know when his trial was going to be, and it should be sometime in July or August. So I never heard a word from him. I just want to make this clear. I never received any contact, even though I was told if anything was going to change, I would be notified. And I know you're an attorney, and, I'm a witness to what happened here. I was on the phone with the police trying to locate her, and she would have already been dead if we weren't able to find her the night that he was beating her and tried to kill her. So I never hear a word from him. I think everything's okay until I get this recording out of the blue, which I know you've listened to before. And, in all honesty, it was too late.
Yeah.
He already had her.
On July 2nd, at around 4 a.m., Lance got a notification on his cell phone that Lauren's Life 360 had been turned off. And Life 360 is basically just an app. You can use this app with your family to track them, know where their location is, keep them safe, et cetera, et cetera. And Lauren's Life 360 location was turned off, or at least maybe her phone died and there just was no more location tracking. Lance also got a call from Lauren's sister who lived with her in Hattiesburg, and the sister said that she'd woken up to find Lauren was gone, front door of the house was open, and their security camera had been ripped off the house. Obviously, Lance and his other family members immediately contacted the Hattiesburg police to let them know that Lauren was missing, and the following morning, Lance reached out to see what kind of updates law enforcement had, what kind of progress they'd made in finding Lauren. And he said, quote, "When I got up there in the morning, I called to see what Hattiesburg police found overnight. There was no communication. They didn't do anything. We assumed they were going to track the vehicle and try to find her, but they never did it until Wednesday at 3 o'clock when I insisted they find out where the car was." End quote. Now, police did end up tracking Lauren's car through OnStar, and it pinged in Harrison County, specifically Gulfport, which is about a 90-minute drive from Hattiesburg, where Lauren lived. Law enforcement contacted Lance Johansen and let him know where Lauren's car had been located, and he drove right over there. Now, he said at this point he knew his daughter was already dead. The car was found on July 3rd in Wolf River Cemetery, and Lauren's body was located in the back seat. Lance said, quote, "When we got there, her car was in the middle of the cemetery, and she was in the back of the car, wrapped up in sheets and trash bags. She was basically beaten to death. Her face was smashed in. Her head was smashed in. She was brutally beaten to the point where she couldn't see out of either eye when she finally died. There was multiple holes in her head. I helped the coroner lift her body out of the car. It was just so mutilated. He beat her so badly that her skull and her face pretty much became fractured from the rest of her body. He basically beat her until the front of her head came off. No human being deserves to have this happen to them." End quote. And no human being deserves to have to help remove their child's beaten and battered and bloody body from a car to hand over to a coroner. No human being deserves that. And I'm very, very sorry this happened to you, Lance, because this is something you never recover from, and this is something you never forget. According to law enforcement, when they arrived on the scene, they saw a male figure run away from Lauren's car into the woods like some dollar store Brian laundry, and they pursued him. This resulted in a multi-hour manhunt. Some news stations say 6 hours, some say 9, but a long time, basically. And this manhunt eventually led to Bryson Rivers' arrest.
All right, we need to put somebody within eyeshot of each other.
Multiple law enforcement agencies filling Wolf River Cemetery Wednesday afternoon searching for Lauren Johansen, the USM Hattiesburg student reported missing by her family.
Swing down to Air 4. How's your sensor working now?
Harrison County Sheriff Matt Haley says deputies arrived at the cemetery around 3 p.m. for what they thought was a welfare check.
We actually received a call from Hattiesburg. They through OnStar, they located the vehicle here at this cemetery, and they asked us to come out and just check on the vehicle.
The sheriff says when a deputy arrived, a man we now know was 23-year-old Bryson Rivers running from the vehicle into the woods.
At that point, they walked up to make contact with the vehicle and observed that there was a deceased subject in the back of the vehicle.
After discovering Johansen wrapped up in a sheet in the back of her car, the intense search then began for Rivers.
We probably had in upwards of 50 law enforcement officers out here, several drones. We had our helicopter out. We had dogs, canines from all over the coast helping.
Drones and the Harrison County Sheriff's helicopter tracked the woods for hours, searching for Rivers. You can spot him here running out of the woods right into waiting law enforcers, bringing the 6-hour search to an end. We realized early on that the subject still had his cell phone on him. So undercover officers were able to, through text messages, have Rivers believe that he was corresponding with a friend. And we were able to lure him out of the woods. Sheriff Haley says it took a coordinated effort from multiple agencies to get Rivers in handcuffs by 11:30.
So this idiot can't even run from the police, right? He can't even run from the police. He's got a cell phone on him still. He's talking to people. He thinks he's talking to a friend, probably saying to this friend, hey, I'm going to be over here. Meet me on this road. I'm about to come out of the forest on this road at this location. Meet me there. And he thinks that he's just going to get away with all of this, that somebody's going to ride up on a white horse and save him and ride him off into the sunset and take him away from all of this responsibility and accountability after he murdered his ex-girlfriend, okay? And he's just an idiot, he's just, at least Brian Laundrie took his own life. At least he had the presence of mind to take his own life. Whereas this dude, Bryson, he's just like, I'm out of here. Where are you going to go, dude? Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? Now we're faced with some questions. We're faced with a lot of questions. One, why was Bryson Rivers released after 4 p.m. when his bond order specifically said that this shouldn't happen? Two, if Rivers' bond company knew the conditions of his bond, which we assume they did because they signed it, why was that not communicated to the GPS tracking company? Three, why did the judge make such a stupid decision to lower Bryson Rivers' bond and make it easier for him to get back out and potentially get to his victim? We're going to have more questions when we go back to this June and July of 2024 kind of time period when Bryson is making bond, when he's getting this GPS monitor. We're gonna have more questions because we're gonna see that things just keep going wrong, and they shouldn't have. We do have a few answers to some questions, but nothing that really makes sense. It just looks like multiple people dropped the ball multiple times, and this resulted in the tragic and violent death of an innocent young woman. And it's going to keep happening because people just obviously don't care. They don't realize the importance. They don't realize how dangerous people like Bryson Rivers can be. So from what we can tell, here's what happened. On June 5th, 2024, on-time bail bonding and Brooks bonding were asked to go to the court and sign an order that specified bond conditions. I already told you that, right? They're going to the court. They're signing an order that lays out bond conditions. Now, Brooke Harlan, who's the owner of Brooks Bonding, claims that the court clerk only showed the second page of the order to her employee, Brooks' employee, and the employee was not told about the first page at all. And the first page would have listed all of the information that was relevant to know, like, that Bryson had to stay in Davidson County, that he couldn't be released after 4 p.m., et cetera, et cetera. Now, the criminal court clerk, Howard Gentry, in response said, quote, "It's just not our responsibility to make sure somebody reads something," end quote. Here comes the finger pointing. Here comes the, I know mistakes were made and I know somebody's dead because of it, but it's not my fault.
Well, I mean, it's the truth. We don't have anything to hide.
Chief Deputy Clerk Julius Sloss says they made a mistake with Rivers' release, and now they are owning up to it.
In this particular case, our employee made the mistake of when he did the recognizance part right, but when he sent the release over, the release unfortunately did not contain the conditions of the bond.
Sloss says that employee was supposed to either take this court order and attach it or include them in Rivers' release form. That means the sheriff's office did not know Rivers was supposed to stay in Davidson County or that his bonding agent was to pick him up between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. to take him immediately here to Tracking Solutions. It's a company where Rivers should have gotten an ankle monitor. Instead, Rivers was released from the Harding Place Correction Facility on his own.
We have talked to the employee about that, and he doesn't know exactly how he missed it.
I would also like to state that the same person you just saw talking, which, I assume is the boss of Howard Gentry, what they call him, Julian Sloss, he also made a comment of like, well, these bail bonding people, they see these documents all the time. Like, how would they not know? Which, like, I agree with you, dude. But it takes a village, right? It takes a village. When something's very important, everybody's kind of got to be on their game, on top of their game in order to make sure that things go the way they're supposed to go. Everybody can't throw up their hands and say, it's not my responsibility. They should have read it. And then the other people, the bail bonding people, are like, well, they didn't give it to us, And it's like, and then this one guy, Howard Gentry, he's like, he has no idea how he made this mistake. So instead of being released into the custody of someone from the bonding company, as he was supposed to be, Bryson Rivers was just let out by himself. And he actually called the bonding company, and he was basically like, what's going on? What do I do now? Now, by the time the bonding agent picked Rivers up, the company they were supposed to go to for the GPS monitor, Tracking Solutions, that was closed. And so instead, Brooks Bonding brought Bryson Rivers to another place, a newly formed company called Freedom Monitoring Services. And it's worth mentioning that this company, Freedom Monitoring Services, is owned by an employee of Brooke Harlan's at Brooks Bonding. Okay, just going to say that. This company was not the court-ordered tracking company, so you know what they didn't have, because they weren't involved in the case at all? They didn't have the order, because that court order, with all the restrictions that Bryson Rivers was supposed to follow, that had gone to Tracking Solutions. And so Freedom Monitoring Services didn't know any of the terms of Bryson Rivers' release, and neither, apparently, did the bonding agent from Brooks Bail Bonding, allegedly. Because they didn't know anything, Freedom Monitoring Services seemed to take Bryson Rivers at his word when he claimed he was allowed to return to Mississippi, like leave Nashville and return to Mississippi. And when they asked him for the address he would be living at in Mississippi, he did provide them with one, but it wasn't his address. It wasn't his mom's address. Whose address was it?
This other company put the ankle monitor on him, okay?
Yep.
This company that owned the ankle monitor was also a bail bonds person, one of the employees of the bail bonds company. The bail bond company signed this order about 3 weeks before he was let out of jail. So if you're going to sign a document on somebody and set up their bond, at least you can do is make a file and put on there what you signed. It's just common sense. When he gets out, he tells them, oh, yeah, I can go to Mississippi. And so guess what address he gave them? He gave them Lauren's home address of where to send him. So they got him a bus ride home to Mississippi, sending him to the address of the woman he wanted to kill.
He gave them Lauren's address in Hattiesburg, and no one blinked an eye. No one thought to check and see if that address was relevant. No one decided to call the court and be like, hey, we don't have an order for this guy and he says he can go back to Mississippi. Is that true? Nobody did anything. And then somehow on Friday, June 28th, Freedom Monitoring finally did receive Bryson Rivers' bond paperwork. And then at around 5 p.m., they also got a no communication alert from Bryson's ankle monitor. Essentially, they were having trouble picking up the signal from Mississippi and Tennessee. There was something wrong with the ankle monitor, so the company contacted Bryson and informed him that he needed to immediately return to Nashville, not because he was in violation of his bond, but so that they could fit him for a new monitor. And this whole interaction, this whole fitting of the new monitor would happen at Brooks Bonding. On this same day, Bryson's probation officer reached out to Tracking Solutions, the original court-ordered monitoring service, and they found out that Bryson had never shown up there. So Tracking Solutions sent a violation report to the district attorney's office, who informed them that Rivers was in violation of his bond conditions. And this is when the DA's office called Lance Johansen and left a voicemail. I believe at this point, they just didn't know that Bryson had been brought to another company. They just assumed he hadn't shown up to be fitted for an ankle monitor at all. And everyone starts scrambling, trying to figure out what happened. Now, Bryson actually did return to Nashville, and he went to the bonding company to get fitted for a new ankle monitor. But apparently, he was not alone.
I want you to remember June 29th, because the people who gave us this photo say that's when Bryson Rivers drove back to Nashville in what they believe was Lauren Johansen's car, with Lauren in the passenger seat. The image was captured by security cameras outside Brooks Bail Bonding, the same company that was court-ordered to return Rivers to jail if he had any contact with the girl police say he once left bruised and beaten in a Nashville parking lot last December. News Channel 5 legal analyst Nick Leonardo.
One of the things that really jumps out is the amended order.
He's referring to this order from Judge Cheryl Blackburn, telling all parties, including the bonding companies, that Bryson was to remain in Davidson County and have no contact with the victim.
When you've got both bonding companies here, and both bonding companies have actually signed on this order that goes over the conditions, along with the Metro employee that is supposed to be supervising this, along with the district attorney's office and the defendant. There's no way to get around it.
So the notion that we just didn't know, I mean, is that an argument that they can make?
When your signature is on this document, quite frankly, you're stopped to deny that you were completely unaware of the bonding conditions, and even more troublesome is what is here at the very bottom of that page.
You can see on the bottom of the page where it says the bonding company is to surrender the defendant to the custody of the Davidson County Sheriff's Office upon notification by the monitoring company of any violations of the court order. Failure to respond to the violations in a timely manner may result in suspension of bond privileges and or other penalties as deemed appropriate by the court.
Now that's some serious language for the bonding company. And clearly in this case, that's the problem that both of these bonding companies have, is that they were in open court and they know what is expected of them, and that didn't happen.
We want to get you out and keep you out, and that's our goal.
Brooke Harlan, owner of Brooks Bail Bonding, promised several times to sit down and answer our questions, but never showed up. She later told News Channel 5 Investigates over the phone that her agent didn't read the first page of what they were signing.
Then why did you rush around to try to have this defendant placed on electronic monitoring? Because you were aware of the conditions of the bond.
The bond conditions made it clear that Rivers should have been taken to Tracking Solutions here in Nashville for a GPS monitor. Harlan insisted that Rivers was released from jail too late in the day, so instead she chose Freedom Monitoring Services, which is owned by one of her bonding agents. That agent, Nikita Wilhoit, would later send this letter to the court saying she only learned of Rivers' bond conditions on June 28th, 4 days after she had placed the ankle monitor on him. And that's when she set up the so-called restriction zones for Rivers' GPS monitor. But remember, by that time, Rivers already returned home to Mississippi, which was a violation of the judge's order.
So if those exclusion zones were set up, did the technology fail, or is that just outright lie as to when you set up those exclusion zones? I mean, that's a real problem.
And when Rivers returned to Brooks Bonding Company the next day to get his device fixed, allegedly with Lauren in the car, Wilhoit and Harlan already knew he couldn't be anywhere near the victim or leave for Mississippi.
That 7-hour drive to Mississippi, you would hope that there would be red flags going on.
It should be
the entire way.
ding, 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 right? I mean, every few seconds.
Basically what happened is that they all realized, wow, this guy got out of jail. There's no monitor. We don't know where he is. What do we do? And everybody got the bond condition so they would know then, because they said they didn't have them, right? So in this time period, Bryson's got a hold of Lauren, and it's against her will. And the monitoring company calls him because they're not getting a good signal in Mississippi with his ankle. So he takes Lauren hostage and he drives back to Nashville. Okay. And he goes to the bail bonds office where the monitor lady is after they've got all the stipulations of what's in the amended bond agreement. Okay. I don't know that they saw Lauren. I didn't know that she was there. We didn't know where she went. And basically he's there. They know he shouldn't be there. They know he's already violated his bond because they told him. They told the bail bonds company and the monitoring company what the rules were. So they knew that he had already violated it. The DA even talked to him. So did the, I guess we'll call it I don't know if you want to call it a probation officer or whatever they are when they get out on bond. So he comes back. They let him go and they screw this all up, right? He comes back and they still screw it up. The man should have been arrested the minute they saw him. The bond company has an obligation and it says in clear writing at the bottom of the amended bond order, he must be apprehended and taken directly to the jail. So they had him again and they screwed it up.
So according to the bail bonding place, Brooks Bail Bonding, and according to Freedom Monitoring Services, on June 28th, they had the order, which showed the restrictions. And allegedly, they programmed in the exclusion zones, which would have made it so that Bryson couldn't leave Davidson County, couldn't leave Nashville, the Nashville area again. But here's a couple questions. One, he'd already left Nashville. He already went back to Mississippi, right? So why was he not arrested when he returned the following day on June 29th, right, to get his bracelet, his new monitor fixed? Why was he not arrested for violating his parole or his bond at that point? He should have been. That's what it says in the order. Now, was it because Freedom Monitoring Services and Brooks Bail Bonding knew they'd made a mistake, knew they'd made a big oopsie, and they didn't want to draw anybody's attention to it? They didn't want to get in trouble. They kind of just want to sweep it under the rug. Second question is, if you programmed in the exclusion zones, which meant that Bryson couldn't leave the Nashville area again, how was he able to leave the Nashville area again? Because after being fitted for a new GPS ankle monitor around 4 p.m. on Saturday, June 29th, Bryson got back in Lauren's car and he drove himself and her back to Mississippi. On Monday, July 1st, Freedom Monitoring saw that Bryson's ankle monitor had a low battery. It was at 6%. So they called him, and I think they called him around 10:09 p.m. And they said, hey, can you charge your ankle monitor? And apparently he did that. They didn't call him and say like, at all that weekend before, because he came on Saturday and then he immediately leaves, goes back to Mississippi. They didn't call him and say, hey, why are you leaving the area? Did you actually program the exclusion zone incorrectly, Freedom Monitoring Services? That's what I would like to know. So anyways, they call him on Monday. It's 10:09 p.m. They're like, charge your ankle monitor. He did charge it. But apparently all day on Monday, Bryson was getting calls from everyone and anyone telling him that he was in trouble and he needed to get back to Nashville for court the following day, which would have been that Tuesday, because he was in violation of his bond terms. And Lauren's father, Lance, believed that this pressure, this consistent, constant, unrelenting pressure triggered Bryson and pushed him over the edge, pushed him to beat Lauren to death.
So the following Monday is when all these people all realize that something's gone badly wrong. They figured out what happened on Friday, but on Monday they all panic. This is July 1st, okay? So just imagine that this psychopath, Mr. Bryson Rivers, is getting phone calls every hour from the monitoring company. Hey, you're in violation. You're in violation. You're in violation. You're having a hearing tomorrow. Your bond is going to be revoked. You're having a hearing tomorrow. You need to be here in Nashville. And this monitoring company is calling him all day long on July 1st. And then imagine that the bail bonds company is calling him, hey, we got to apprehend you. You violated your bond. You're going to go to jail tomorrow. You need to be here for court. So they keep calling him nonstop. And imagine a psychopath being aggravated by all these sources. Are you following me?
Yep.
And then imagine his attorney calls, man, you really screwed up. You knew you weren't supposed to go there. Now you're in trouble. They're going to take your bond away. You're going back to prison for the rest of your life. So when I analyzed all this data and looked at it, this went on all day long on July 1st, up until midnight. And up until midnight, he talks to this monitoring company, and guess what he says? I'm not coming tomorrow.
Wow.
Okay, and this is let's just say it was 12:30 in the morning on July 2nd. Okay, so at 4:01 a.m. on July 2nd, my daughter's Life 360 gets cut off. So basically, they drove this man, this psycho man, so crazy that he had no choice but to kill her. He had nothing to lose. And enraging a psychopath is basically what they did. All their incompetence enraged him so bad that his only choice was to kill her. And that's what he did.
On Tuesday, July 2nd, Freedom Monitoring said that the battery on Bryson's GPS ankle bracelet started going down around 10 a.m. and he was not responding to messages throughout the day. They contacted his mother, who claimed she had not seen or heard from him. And the court issued a warrant for Bryson Rivers after learning he'd been in Mississippi since June 24th. And then once his tracker was at 0%, Freedom Monitoring alerted the probation officer and bonding company. Why did they wait until it was at 0% when they knew he wasn't in the Nashville area anymore, that he'd gone back to Mississippi? Why? Bryson's last known location before the monitor completely died was Beach Boulevard in Biloxi, Mississippi. Okay? So they knew he wasn't in the Nashville area. Why did they wait until his ankle monitor died to contact somebody? And Biloxi, Mississippi is only a half an hour away from Gulfport, where Lauren's body was found. And it's likely that by this time, she was already dead. In fact, law enforcement has recently uncovered evidence that they claim leads them to believe Lauren was killed in Forest County, not Harrison County, where she was located.
Hattiesburg was home to 22-year-old Lauren Johansen, a USM nursing student who was found dead in her car in Harrison County on July 3rd. But authorities say new findings suggest that the case could be a little closer to home.
More and more evidence has come to light, and indicators are that the actual murder occurred in Forest County.
Forest County Sheriff Charlie Sims says once the case is moved to the Pine Belt, a task force will be assembled.
We would be responsible for bringing in all the evidence, putting the casework that's already been done, putting it into a presentation for the district attorney's office, all the other evidence which points to the suspect that's in custody, and coordinating all the different aspects of the investigation into one.
Sources tell WDAM Bryson Rivers could be moved to the Forest County Jail as soon as Wednesday.
On July 26th, Bryson Rivers appeared in Forest County Court after being relocated from Harrison County and receiving additional charges. He was charged with first-degree murder and he was denied bond. That's a novel idea. Just don't put him back in front of Judge Cheryl Blackburn, okay? Because she'll be like, I'm going to reverse this. I'm going to give you bond. In fact, your bond's only $10 and a Snickers bar. You have that on you now, by the way, because if you do, I'll just take it and you can just walk out, okay? We don't even need to do any paperwork. Bryson Rivers was also charged with grand larceny and tampering with evidence. And in court, prosecutors said they believed that Bryson killed Lauren near her home, which was in Forest County, and then transported her body across county lines. And so the tampering with evidence charge was added because Rivers stole Lauren's vehicle, attempted to clean it after the murder, and transported her body across county lines. Bryson's now being held on a $1 million bond, and Lance Johansen obviously and clearly and rightfully so believes that the criminal justice system in Nashville failed his daughter. And honestly, I think it's an understatement. Like, what they did, what all of these people did, is criminal. And they need to be held accountable.
Johansen says he is still perplexed how a Tennessee judge allowed Rivers out of jail on a reduced bond.
You have recordings of a woman screaming for her life and their evidence, and then you have body camera from the police officer, finding her bloody, almost beaten to death, that had been suffocated, and that seems to be not enough to keep somebody in jail. And really, whoever the judge's bosses are, I don't know who it is, you probably know, they need to have a meeting with the judges first. And they let the judges know that your behavior is unacceptable. Your decision-making is unacceptable. This is a broken system. We have to fix it. So it's easy for the judges to start pointing fingers at other people, but you know as well as I do, when you point a finger at somebody, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you, aren't they? So I would like to see the judge that made this error resign. That's the first thing that I'm calling for. She's done a nice job maybe in the years of being a judge, but at this point, time's up, it's over. You aren't capable of making good decisions. And I don't mean to say this in an ugly way, but this has already been documented before this ever happened with Lauren, that there was issues with this judge sleeping on the job and not having the ability to, rule like she used to.
Did you file a complaint against this judge?
I have not filed a complaint against this judge except for verbally in interviews with you. The time will come for that. We are in the grieving process right now, and I don't know how long this process is going to take. It probably will never end for me.
Has the judge ever issued an apology for this? Has the judge ever issued an explanation for this? Has she defended herself at all from this?
All I can find is that everything says no comment.
I asked you this last time, I'm curious. Did anyone apologize to you? The bail companies, the court, has anybody apologized to you?
Nobody has apologized to me. Nobody has talked to me. The only communication that I've had is as I discussed with you, is I talked to the on-call DA the day that we found her body beforehand, and I said, whatever y'all done here is not right. I said, you can't even tell me where the GPS location is with an ankle monitor. I was trying to be nice because I was looking for my daughter, even though I was upset with what they had done. So I tried to call them, and they wouldn't answer my phone call.
I'm going to read some of the current news that's coming out, which basically is talking about the bail bond companies and everybody being under investigation. So basically, as of now, the bail bonding companies are under investigation. And NewsChannel5.com reports, quote, newly obtained photos from Brooks' bail bonding appear to show Bryson Rivers was in violation of his bond conditions at the time he pulled into the company's parking lot before leaving again for Mississippi. Security cameras captured the footage outside the building just 4 days before Lauren Johansen's murder in Mississippi, and according to Brooke Harlan, the company's owner, it shows Rivers driving in Johansen's car with her in the passenger seat. Now, did Brooke Harlan or did anybody at Brooks Bonding know that Lauren was in the car with Bryson when he showed back up? I don't know. I don't really know. Did she go inside with him? Did he leave her in the car? Did he feel comfortable to leave her in the car knowing that he had taken her against her will and that she was probably scared? Did he bring her in with him? Did he just threaten her, like, if you leave this car, I'll kill you, I'll find you? I don't know. But did anybody know she was with him is the question, because if they did, well, we've got some explaining to do, don't we? The article continues saying that the bonding company was under a court order to return Rivers to jail if he had any contact with Johansen after his release. It's unclear why this never happened. Now, this article also asks a question. How does someone who is wearing a GPS device meant to keep him in Nashville, Tennessee, become a murder suspect in rural Mississippi? Brooke Harlan of Brooks Bonding promised several times to sit down and answer our questions about her bonding company's actions, but never showed up for a scheduled interview. I'm not surprised. She later told News Channel 5 investigators over the phone that her agent did not read the first page of the judge's order they signed detailing Rivers' bond condition. Once again, what is this? Because earlier, Brooke Harlan said it wasn't provided to her employee, and now she's saying the employee didn't read it. And the question that we saw, Nick Leonardo, who is the legal analysis for News Channel 5, where he said, then why did you rush around trying to have this defendant placed on electronic monitoring because you were aware of the conditions of the bond? That is valid. It seems that they knew, to some extent, Brooks Bonding, what Bryson Rivers could and could not do. Now, the court officials who've acknowledged that they made an error, that one of their clerks, that Howard dude, made an error, this only meant that the Davidson County Jail didn't have Bryson Rivers' bond conditions when he was released. But remember, the agents from the bonding companies went several days before Bryson Rivers was released from jail and signed the order. So they would have read it then. And there's nobody saying that any mistake was made, that these bonding agents or their representatives weren't presented with the full order, that they weren't given both pages of Bryson Rivers' bond order. News Channel 5 also reached out to the owner of Freedom Monitoring Services, Nikita Wilhite, which remember, she works for Brooks Bonding as well as owning Freedom Monitoring Services. And according to this article, Wilhite filed paperwork with the state to incorporate Freedom Monitoring just 7 days before her boss, Harlan, asked her to put a GPS monitor on Rivers. 7 days. A week. This company was a week old. Now, was this Brooke Harlan's kind of plan to build an empire with her company, have her employee open, or, I don't mean to say she was having her employee open a, GPS monitoring service, but the employee decided to, and then Brooke was like, okay, I'm gonna, have the people that I bond out or my company bonds out go to you for GPS services. We'll have the symbiotic relationship. Maybe I get a little finder's fee. You win, I win, everyone wins. And we just build Brooks Bonding up even further into some sort of empire thing. And we're all working together and we're all benefiting. Was that the plan? Was Bryson Rivers, Freedom Monitoring Services, first actual customer or first, client? Because he wasn't court ordered to go there. He was court ordered to go to a different company, Tracking Solutions. So was it just that he got released from jail too late? Why did he get released from jail too late? No bonding agent went to pick him up. He had to leave the jail and call them and be like, where are you guys at? And then they came and picked him up. And you know what? By the time they picked him up, it was too late to go to Tracking Solutions. So they brought him to Freedom Monitoring Services, which happens to have just been a week old and happens to be owned by an employee who works for Brooke Harlan. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good. News Channel 9 ABC reports that Nashville judges want answers on why bond conditions for suspected killer Bryson Rivers were not followed by the companies in charge of seeing them through. Some argue this slip-up allowed Rivers a chance to go to Mississippi and kill Lauren Johansen. Some argue it. So what is this ignorant reporting? Some argue. It's clear. It's clear that this slip-up allowed Rivers the chance to go to Mississippi and kill Lauren Johansen. That's the only reason he was able to do that. Fox News 17 first noticed there might have been an issue with Rivers' bond conditions back on July 5th. Since then, one of the two bonding companies continued to deny any wrongdoing. A hearing next month plans to get to the bottom of it. A 6-judge panel plans to question Brooks' bail bonding and on-time bail bonds on how they handled Rivers' bond conditions. Bond experts have told us it appears the bonding companies did not follow the conditions of Rivers' release. He had to stay in Davidson County and wear a GPS monitor. Brooke Harlan from Brooks Bail Bonding first told us the company was not aware of the bond conditions. However, there were signatures from both bonding companies back on June 5th that came with the bond conditions and the recognizance package on June 24th, also with the bond conditions the day Rivers was released. He is the second person who is aware of the bonding process who told us the same thing this month. Stephanie Krivtscher, who is in charge of overseeing Rivers' bond conditions, told Fox 17 that she found out on June 28th he violated his bond conditions because the court-ordered GPS tracking company, Tracking Solutions, told him he never showed up. Harlan blamed the Davidson County Sheriff's Office for releasing Rivers on the street. She told us Rivers called Brooks Bail Bonding. Then, because it was after hours, they took him to Freedom Monitoring, not Tracking Solutions. We called Freedom Monitoring before. They told us they were not aware of the bond conditions. We called them Tuesday. Their numbers disconnected. After more became uncovered in the Rivers case, Harlan then blamed what happened on the mistake that was made by a deputy clerk not sending the bond conditions to the sheriff's office, prompting his release. After repeated attempts to get answers from Harlan, she told us today she cannot answer on why both bond companies' signatures are on the documents. She told her attorney wouldn't let her comment. The second bond company, On Time Bail Bonds, declined to comment. Out of the 6 judges in next month's hearing includes Judge Cheryl Blackburn, who reduced Rivers' bond in the first place. For real? Isn't that a conflict of interest? Isn't that a little bit of a conflict of interest? A bond expert tells me there are 3 outcomes in this hearing, including the bonding companies getting suspended or shut down. And the hearing's going to be held at 1 p.m. on August 15th. So yeah, at this point, that's basically all we know. Now, this video is probably going to come out after August 15th, even though I'm filming it before August 15th, but I have the Trails Carolina series that I already have edited and it's ready to post. So that's going to go out first. But I will say this. If the bond, companies get their asses handed to them during this August 15th hearing, if new information comes out, which I expect it will, I'm going to make an update video. It'll probably only be like 10 minutes, but I'll put it out as soon as I get the new information. It's not going to be highly edited. It's not going to be highly produced. It's just going to be me sitting here talking to you. Maybe I'll even go live and then post it so that we can discuss the new information, but I will update you because I personally want to see every single person who dropped the ball held to some sort of accountability here. I need to see it. I need it at this point. This is horrendous. The fact that Judge Cheryl Blackburn reduced his bond, the fact that all these bonding companies, these greedy bonding companies, just completely dropped every single ball that they could possibly handle, even though there weren't many balls to handle in this situation. It's like, get him a GPS tracking device from this place and then make sure that they know he has these restrictions. It's pretty simple, okay? Isn't this what you do for a living? Isn't this what you do? Honestly, and this is all alleged, this is all just my personal opinion, Brooks bail bonding gives me the wrong vibe, okay? Their whole, marketing is very much just look at their website. It looks like it looks like the movie poster for Dynasty. It looks like they're very focused on money and the luxurious life, and it's very kind of, I don't know, oily feeling. If you get booked, call Miss Brooke. It's weird, infomercial, kind of just Dog the Bounty Hunter kind of thing. And how do bonding companies like this even make their money? Well, they make it by charging a premium, right? They make it by charging a premium or a fee to post bail for defendants. And this premium is usually a percentage of the total bail amount, around 10 to 15%. It's non-refundable. So if the bail is set at $5,000, the defendant would pay the bail company $500 to secure their release from jail. So if Brooks bail bonding paid $75K, we'll go kind of the lower end. What's 10% of that? It's $7,500. So you do enough of these, you get it. This is money. This is a big sort of money scheme kind of thing. And I'm not saying that Brooke Harlan is bad or wrong or intentionally put Lauren Johansen in danger. I genuinely don't understand how anybody could do that, especially another woman. I don't think that's what happened, but I definitely do think there was some lack of responsibility. There was some lack of understanding the importance. Brooke Harlan, on her bio, she says she believes everyone is innocent until proven guilty, and she believes that everyone has a right to make bond and be reunited with their families. And I'm glad that she feels so strongly about, these rights and the rights of people who are being arrested and things. That's great. But what about the victims' rights? The victims also have rights. The victims also need to be protected. So there needs to be a little balance here where you're doing what you can for your clients because you're getting paid to do that, but you're also being cognizant of the fact that there's somebody else on the other end of this case who needs to still be protected. And so there needs to be precautions taken. Now, remember Nick Bell, which was Lauren's ex-boyfriend, her fiance for a few months. He believes that Lauren would be alive today if the judge hadn't lowered Bryson Rivers' bond. And Nick said, quote, "I know how bonds work. I know they are not designed to hold someone in place forever, but when someone hurts another person to that degree, they do not deserve a second chance." Agreed, Nick. Nick goes on to say, "I don't want him to die. I want him to suffer every day. Lauren was kind, intelligent, and miraculous in every way, shape, and form. There's no other way to describe it. I want him to regret killing her for the rest of his life," end quote. And this is a great sentiment, and I understand where it's coming from, but I think normal people like Nick Bell, they have a hard time putting themselves in the minds of people like Bryson Rivers. And because someone like Nick would feel bad every day for the rest of his life about hurting Lauren, about doing what Bryson did to Lauren, he assumes that everyone feels that way, that everyone would carry that kind of guilt and shame. But what we have to understand here is Bryson Rivers will not feel bad. He will not carry any guilt or shame. In fact, for the rest of his life, Bryson Rivers is going to blame Lauren and use her as the fall guy, as the reason of why he is sitting in prison and why he hopefully will die behind bars. He's never going to feel bad. He's never going to regret it. He's never going to say, oh, she was such a great person. I'm sorry I did that to her. No. People like this, they don't feel that way. They never come around. They never have this grand realization of, oh, she was the best thing that ever happened to me. And how could I have done this? And I ruined her life and ended her life and I ruined my life forever. No. It's always going to be Lauren's fault, even though she was the victim, even though she is dead. Bryson Rivers will always blame Lauren Johansen for his current situation until the day he dies, which hopefully comes sooner than later, to be honest, because fuck that dude. Seriously. So I will keep you up to date on this case, and if there's updates, there's going to be, of course, we'll talk about that, but let me know what you think about it in the comment section. Thank you so much for being here. This was a difficult one. I know it was probably difficult for a lot of you out there, so thanks for hanging in here with me. I'm sure Lauren appreciates it, or Lauren would appreciate it, and I know her family definitely does. Yeah, let me know what you think about this in the comment section. Don't forget to like the video if you liked it, share it if you think it's worth sharing, and subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, stay kind, stay beautiful, and stay safe. Love you so much. I'll see you very, very soon. Bye.
They're going back from the grave, calling out my name, better say a Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's getting you slowly. It's all you got to let it go. I got blood on the strings.